Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to jump ahead a little bit to do puzzle number 9 in the Fiendish Logic Puzzle book from Puzzle Baron and Stephen P. Ryder. We have a taxi driver who has 7 different customers who paid 7 different fares at 7 different pickup points and 7 different drop-off locations. Let's jump right in. Wayne paid somewhat less than Tim, who wasn't dropped off on Ethel Street. We also know Tim can't be the least, Wayne can't be the most. We haven't had one of these clues yet, where they list out all the different exclusive clues. So we have the 7 customers were Josephine, the one who paid $9.50, the 3 who were picked up at Smith Tower, the Hodge Building, and the Rainier Club, and the 2 who were dropped off at Mill Avenue and Ethel Street. Okay. So let's go through it. Let's start with Josephine. That means that each one of these is its own person. No, they can't have any in common. So Josephine can't be 950. She can't have been picked up at Smith Tower, the Hodge Building, or the Rainier Club. And she couldn't have been dropped off on Ethel Street or Mill Avenue. Excuse me. But more than that, the 950 can't be Josephine, also can't be Smith Tower, Rainier Club, Hodge Building, Mill Avenue, or Ethel Street. And all these 3 pickup points, they can't be on drop off on Ethel Street, Smith Tower. You get the idea. I think that should be just about everything. Okay, for now. Neil, who was dropped off on Q Street, paid $3 more than Josephine. Oh, this is great. So we have a drop-off point. Q Street. Okay. He paid $3 more than Josephine. So let's see. Neil couldn't have paid $6.50 because that's not $3 more than anything. Could be $9.50, but can't be $12.50 because Josephine can't be $9.50. And up it goes until Josephine can't be the most expensive. We're in increments of $3, so it's 1 increment. But we also know something else. Let's go back to clue number 2. Now, one of these 7 customers has to be Neil. Obviously, Neil can't be Josephine. So Neil is either the one who paid $9.50, or he's from the Smith Tower, the Hodge Building, or the Rainier Club, because he's not from Mill Avenue or Ethel Street. Not really a lot to go on yet, but as we narrow it down, we'll have a lot more of those conversations. Okay, this is good. We have the same category here in 1 clue, so that's going to help us a lot. Of the 2 who paid $18.50 and $21.50, one was Tim and the other was dropped off on Viking Street. Okay. So first off, Tim can only be $8.50 or $21.50. And so can Viking Street, so that's about here. But we already knew something about Tim. We knew that Wayne has to be somewhat less than Tim. So we can get rid of this, because if Wayne was here, Tim would be less than him, which can't be. But we also might know something. Neil here obviously isn't Tim, and he's not dropped off on Viking Street. He was dropped off on Q Street. So that tells me that Neil can't be $18.50 or $21.50. And we know that Neil is $3 more than Josephine, so that narrows down Josephine quite a bit. Great. The $6.50 fare, aka the least expensive fare, with either Josephine or the one who was picked up at the Arctic building? Okay, so far we don't know that yet. That's okay. The James Street drop-off, who was either picked up at the Space Needle or the Fremont Library, paid a higher fare than the person dropped off at Ivy Street, who paid more than the person dropped off at Mill Avenue. All right, this one's a doozy. Let's, when we have a big, long clue like this, I like to draw it out. Okay, let's see. Well, first off, James Street, here we go, is either the Space Needle or the library. This is around Seattle, by the way. Okay. So, James Street is higher than Ivy Street. Paid more than Ivy, who paid more than Mill Avenue. And we don't know by how much more, just that that's the order, right? Yes. Okay, so let's take a look. Are these all in the, yeah, they're all in the same category. Okay, so what does this tell us? So if Mill was the very least, and if James was the very most, James B, and then Ivy, and then there. Okay. So far that's all we know, but that'll be coming to handy later. Because if, let's say this was Ivy and it was the most, then James Street would have to be less than that, which it can't be. And even if it was, and even if Mill Avenue was here, there's only room for one to be more than that. We need two. We don't know how much more it could be. They don't have to be one after the other, but okay. Frederick paid $3 less than whoever got picked up at the Space Needle. So Frederick is not at the Space Needle. And we also know he didn't pay the most. That's not less than anything. We know the Space Needle isn't the least. And there's nothing else there. So for now we're done. That's clue number 7. Clue number 8. Della paid somewhat less than the client who was picked up at Fremont Library, who paid $3 less than the client from Smith Tower. So, just to be clear, Smith $3 less than Smith Tower, Library, and then Della. $3 here, question mark there. Okay, so Smith Tower is it's more than the library, so the library cannot be first. No, excuse me, other way around. Oh yeah. No, I was right. So it can't be there. Obviously this can't be there. So if the Smith Tower was the most expensive, then Fremont would be here. Okay, and Della is even less than that. Cross that out and that out. Yep, because the Smith Tower could be here, and then Fremont could be there, and Della could be there. Okay, but that's all we know for now. Josephine paid a higher fare than whoever was dropped off on Mill Avenue. Okay, this is great. Josephine paid a higher fare than Mill Avenue. that tells us that she didn't pay the lowest fare, which is another clue. The $6.50 was either Josephine. No, it's not. It's the one who picked up at the Arctic building. Great. But back to clue number 9. Higher fare than Mill Avenue. You don't know what Mill Avenue is yet. But let's see. Yeah, Mill Avenue could be here, and either of these would work. Good. Okay. One fare went from the Space Needle to Ethel Street. That's a great clue. Space Needle to Ethel Street. Now, I'm sure you guys see something else here. Yeah, I'll just check it off. I won't be cryptic. Now we know that James Street goes to the Fremont Library. But we also know, if we go back to number 2, Ethel Street is one of the 7. So now we know that the Space Needle can't be anything else on this list. Can't be 950. Can't be Josephine. And obviously it couldn't be Mill Avenue or any of these. Okay. And what about this one? So now we have the Fremont Library. That's not one of the 3. James Street. So this is either, so James Street and the Fremont Library, that has to either be Josephine or the 950. Let's keep that in mind. Okay. Wayne wasn't picked up at the Arctic building. We now know what that is. Right there. Oh, and I'll put it down here also. The client who was dropped off on Norwood Street wasn't picked up at the Rainier Club. So Rainier Club, Norwood Street. Okay, that's all of them. Let's start at the top. Wayne paid somewhat less than Tim, who wasn't dropped off at Ethel Street, meaning he didn't go to the Space Needle. In fact, Ethel Street. And right there. Good. The 7 customers were Josephine, 950, Smith Tower, Hodge Building, Rainier Club, Mill Avenue, Ethel Street. Okay. Oh, let's just there. I keep track of which ones are found. Neil paid $3 more than Josephine. Oh. Or here. But we do know that 2150 here, which is one of the options for Josephine, has to either be Tim or Viking Street. So can Josephine be Viking Street? Anything else about Viking Street? Not yet. So maybe. We'll see. Excuse me. It's Neil is Q Street, so clean up the board. Okay. Okay. 18, 50, and 21 is either Tim or Viking Street. James Street drop-off, which is either for Fremont Library. Wait, oh, the James Street drop-off, which, as you now know, is the Fremont Library, paid a higher fee than Ivy Street, who paid more than Mill Avenue. Oh, look at that. James Street can't be $9.50. What is that, actually? Oh, yeah. For the reason I just said. Okay? That means Moore Mansion is our $9.50. That also means we found it. Yeah, because James Street has to be more than Ivy and Mill, which has to be more than Mill. So the very least it could be is here. Yeah. Okay. So back to clue number 2. Alright, so the Fremont Library here. It can't be $9.50. We just determined that. It's not any of these places because it's the library. And it's neither on Mill Avenue or Ethel Street. It's on James Street. The only one left it could be is Josephine. So James Street is Josephine. Very good. Okay. Now, update the board. Here too. Pretty good. Oh, and that makes sense because down here it says Josephine paid a higher fare than Mill Avenue, and so is James Street. And James Street has to be more than Ivy. So Ivy can't be here. And if this is the most Ivy can be, Mill can't be here. Okay. I want to take a look at Neil here because Neil isn't Josephine. He's not $9.50, and he is not on Mill Avenue or Ethel Street. So it has to be one of the three: the Smith Tower, the Hodge Building, or the Rainier Club. So not that. Not the Moore Mansion. No, he can't be the Moore Mansion. I was gonna say because that's $9.50. We already determined. Rainier Club or Smith Tower. Good. Same thing over here. Frederick paid $3 less than the Space Needle. Good. Della paid somewhat less than the client who was picked up at the Fremont Library, aka Josephine, who paid $3 less than Smith Tower. Okay. I'm noticing something here. Okay. Okay, so Della paid $3 less than the library, who was $3 less than the Smith Tower. Now we know that the Fremont Library is Josephine. And that means that Josephine is $3 less than the Smith Tower. But according to number 3, Josephine is also $3 less than Neil. Right? Neil paid $3 more than Josephine, so Josephine paid $3 less than Neil. And the Fremont Library paid $3 less than Smith Tower. This tells us that Neil has to be from the Smith Tower. And that lines up with what we said before, that had to be one of the 3 on the list. So we found that. Pretty good. And Della has to be less than that. It's good to me. That's all we know, really. Okay. Josephine paid higher than Mill Avenue. Another. Okay. Alright. I think we can, why don't we clean up the board a little bit? Q Street is Smith Tower, because it's Neil. Good. Oh, Moore Mansion can't be Viking Street because it can't be Tim. Well, no, not because it can't be Tim, because it can't be 1850 or 2150. So not Viking Street. Same for Architect Library. Okay. Lane paid somewhat less than Tim. Tim wasn't dropped off on Ethel Street, which means Tim isn't going to the Space Needle. Some customers were Josephine, $9.50. Smith Tower, Hodge Building, Rainier Club, Mill Avenue, and Ethel Street. Just clean that up for myself. Oh, here. Mill Avenue can't be the 950, so we can cross that out right there. And that gives us Mill Avenue has to be the Arctic Building, aka 650, aka the cheapest, the least expensive fare. And we know, what do we know about the Mill Building? It has to be somewhat, we know that it's somewhat less than Ivy Street and James Street. So the very cheapest is less than some other value. Very helpful hint. Not really. But hey, it's something. I'll put it on the... Everything's found. Yes. Let's see. Let's go. Tim, and not the Arctic Building. Not the Fremont Library, just because that's taken. Maybe the Hodge. Not the Moore Mansion. And it could be the Rainier Club, but it would be the Smith Tower. Okay. What else can we eliminate like that? Oh, what am I thinking? Josephine. Fremont Library. Good. Norwood Street. Moore Mansion. Just cleaning up the board a little. Okay, how about this? Let's see. Rainier Club is now either Ivy or Viking Street. So we can cross out here because it can't be either. Anything else like that we can work with? About more mansion. That's either Ivy Street or Norwood. I don't think that's much help. Oh, how about that? Let's see. No, not quite. Okay, how about this? So far, Viking Street can only be the Hogue building or the Rainier Club, and Tim can only be the Hogue building and the Rainier Club. That tells us that nothing else can be 1850 or 2150. Only those two. Space Needle. And of course, that tells us that it can only be those two. Okay, that actually helps us a lot. So Fremont Library, which is Josephine, was here. Josephine is $3 less than Neil. Neil is Q Street. Q Street is Smith Tower. Space Needle is Ethel Street. Lee is Space Needle and Ethel Street. Della is the least expensive. Arctic, Mill. And James has to be more than Ivy, so Ivy can only be here. I'm thinking this tells us that Tim has to be Norwood Street. Well, that makes sense. Ivy Street is now eliminated. And it can't be Viking Street, obviously. That should have already been crossed out. Norwood Street. Tim, we don't know where yet. Okay, great. Frederick is $3 less than the Space Needle, which is the most expensive. Tim goes here. Viking Street goes here. And what's left is Ivy Street. Wayne. Okay. Yep, that should be all the names and all the streets. Neil and Tim. Frederick is Viking Street. And Tim is Norwood Street. Okay, and now we just have 2 left. Just clean this up. Okay. Alright, and okay. Norwood Street is not the Rainier Club, which means it has to be the Hogue building, or Hodge building. I don't know, I've never been to Seattle. And that means Rainier Club is Viking Street. And what's left? Hogue building. Alright, now I turn to the back of the book and I check our answers. Let's see. We have Della, Wayne, Josephine, Neil, Tim, Frederick, Lee. Good. Arctic, Moore, Fremont, Smith, Hoge, Rainier, and Space Needle. Good. Mill, Ivy, James, Q, Norwood Street, Viking Street, and Ethel Street. We got it. Thank you so much for watching. Now I'm going to quickly finish filling out the board. It shouldn't take too long. We're very thorough. Norwood Street. Take this time to thank you again for watching. And Moore Mansion is here. See, that didn't take too long. Voila! Thanks for watching.